Picture this. It is 2 a.m. in a small town in rural Texas. A third-generation oil worker named Robert is sitting at his kitchen table, staring at a letter from his employer. The refinery where his father worked, and his grandfather before him, is closing. Not because the oil ran out, not because of an accident, but because the numbers no longer work. Robert is not alone. Right now, across Saudi Arabia, Russia, Venezuela, and Nigeria, the countries that built their entire economies on a single black liquid, government officials are sitting in closed-door meetings asking the same terrifying question: what do we do when the world stops needing what we sell? And here is the part that nobody in the mainstream media is telling you clearly. That moment is not coming. It has already started. But before we go any further, I want to tell you something important. If you stay until the end of this video, I am going to reveal the name of one single country, a country most people have never considered, that is quietly positioning itself to become the Saudi Arabia of the new energy era. A country that could make early investors and informed citizens extraordinarily wealthy over the next 2 decades. You will not find this in the headlines. You will not hear it on CNBC. But by the end of this video, you will know exactly which country it is, and why. Now, before we get there, let me ask you something directly. Are you still paying a high electricity bill every month? Drop the number in the comments below. Just the number. No explanation needed. I want to see where my audience is, because what I am about to show you will change how you think about that bill forever. The global energy system, the infrastructure that powers every light, every factory, every hospital, every data center on this planet, is going through the most dramatic transformation in over 100 years. And most people have absolutely no idea what is really happening. This is not a story about solar panels and wind turbines. This is a story about power, about which countries will control the world's energy supply for the next century, about which economies will collapse when the transition accelerates, and about the hidden winners, the nations, the companies, and the technologies that are quietly taking over while everyone else is still arguing about oil prices. 4 warnings. That is what this video is. 4 warnings that the energy world is sending right now and that most people are completely ignoring. Let us begin. Warning 1. The oil clock is running faster than anyone admits. In 1973, the Arab oil embargo sent shockwaves through the entire Western world. Gas lines stretched for miles, governments panicked, economies collapsed overnight. And the world learned a brutal lesson: whoever controls the oil controls the world. For the next 50 years, that lesson shaped everything. Wars were fought over it, alliances were built around it, entire nations were created, or destroyed, because of it. But here is what the oil industry does not want you to know in 2026. The decline has already begun. Not the decline of oil production, not yet, but the decline of something far more important: the decline of oil's irreplaceability. Let me give you 3 numbers that tell the whole story. In 2015, electric vehicles represented less than 1% of all new car sales globally. In 2023, that number crossed 15%. In 2026, analysts project it will exceed 25% in Europe and 30% in China. That does not sound dramatic, until you understand what it means for oil demand. Every electric vehicle on the road today displaces approximately 1.5 barrels of oil per year. There are now over 40 million electric vehicles on the road globally. That is 60 million barrels of oil per year that simply no longer get burned. And that number is doubling every 3 years. But the real warning is not about cars. The real warning is about the psychology of oil markets. Oil prices are not just driven by supply and demand today. They are driven by expectations of supply and demand in the future. And when institutional investors, the pension funds, the sovereign wealth funds, the major banks, start believing that oil demand will peak within the next decade, they begin pulling capital out of oil infrastructure today. That is already happening. In 2024, global investment in new oil exploration hit its lowest level since 2005, not because there is no oil left to find, but because the financial world has already started pricing in the end of the oil era. And here is the brutal consequence of that. When you stop investing in new oil fields today, you create a supply gap in 5 to 10 years, which means, paradoxically, that even as the world transitions away from oil, we may face a severe oil price spike in the late 2000s and early 2000s, simply because not enough new supply was developed. Robert in Texas is losing his job not because oil is dead, but because the world is caught in the most dangerous transition in energy history. Too fast for oil, too slow for everything else. That brings us to Warning 2. Warning 2. Renewable energy is not ready, and nobody wants to admit it. Here is the narrative you hear constantly from politicians, from climate activists, from technology optimists. Renewable energy is cheaper than ever. Solar and wind are now the cheapest forms of electricity generation in history. The transition is inevitable and it is accelerating. Every single one of those statements is true, and yet, the world is still more dependent on fossil fuels today than it was in 2000. How is that possible? This is the great paradox of the energy transition, and understanding it is absolutely critical, because it explains why the next 20 years will be far more chaotic, far more expensive, and far more geopolitically dangerous than most people expect. The problem is not generation. The problem is everything else. Solar panels generate electricity beautifully when the sun shines. Wind turbines generate electricity magnificently when the wind blows. But the sun does not always shine, the wind does not always blow, and the world needs electricity 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without interruption. The solution to this problem is called grid-scale energy storage, and right now, in 2026, we do not have nearly enough of it. The entire world's installed battery storage capacity today could power global electricity demand for approximately 11 minutes. 11 minutes. That is the gap between where renewable energy is today and where it needs to be to actually replace fossil fuels at scale. But the storage problem is only the beginning. The second problem is the grid itself. The electrical grids of the United States, Europe, and most of the developed world were built in the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s, designed for a world where large centralized power plants pushed electricity in one direction to passive consumers. Renewable energy works completely differently. It is distributed, it is variable, it flows in multiple directions simultaneously, and the old grid simply cannot handle it efficiently. The American Society of Civil Engineers estimates that the United States alone needs to invest over $2 trillion in grid modernization over the next decade just to support the renewable transition that is already underway. $2 trillion for one country, just for the grid. Europe faces a similar challenge. So does Japan, so does India. And then there is the third problem, the one that almost nobody talks about. Critical minerals. Solar panels require silicon, silver, and indium. Wind turbines require rare earth elements, neodymium, dysprosium, praseodymium. Electric vehicle batteries require lithium, cobalt, nickel, and manganese. Grid-scale storage requires vast quantities of the same. The International Energy Agency estimates that a full global energy transition by 2050 would require 6 times the current global production of critical minerals. 6 times. And here is the geopolitical nightmare hiding inside that number. Right now, China controls approximately 60% of the world's rare earth processing capacity. China controls 70% of the world's cobalt refining. China dominates the supply chains for solar panels, wind turbine components, and electric vehicle batteries, which means the West is not transitioning away from dependence on authoritarian petrostates. It is transitioning toward dependence on a single authoritarian superstate. That is Warning 2. The renewable transition is real, but it is creating new vulnerabilities faster than it is eliminating old ones. Warning 3. The new energy map has already been drawn, and most countries lost. In 1945, the United States and its allies sat down and drew the map of the post-war world. They decided which countries would be powerful, which would be dependent, and which would be irrelevant. That map, with some modifications, is still the map we live on today. Right now, in 2026, a new map is being drawn, not in a conference room, not at a United Nations summit, but in the quiet decisions of mining companies, technology investors, infrastructure developers, and government strategists who understand that the energy transition is not just an environmental story, it is a geopolitical revolution, and the new map looks nothing like the old one. Let me show you who is winning. The United States is in a stronger position than most people realize, America has massive reserves of natural gas, the critical bridge fuel that will power the transition for the next 2 to 3 decades. America has significant lithium deposits in Nevada and the Carolinas. America has the world's most advanced battery technology companies, and America has the Inflation Reduction Act, the largest industrial policy investment in American history, specifically designed to dominate the clean energy supply chain. The European Union is in a more complicated position. Europe has committed aggressively to the energy transition, but it has very few of the critical minerals it needs, and it is dangerously dependent on Chinese supply chains for solar and wind components. Europe's energy transition is real, but it is expensive, fragile, and vulnerable to geopolitical disruption. China is playing the longest game of anyone. China understood 15 years ago that the energy transition was coming, and it made a strategic decision to dominate every layer of the supply chain. Chinese companies now control the majority of global solar panel production, wind turbine manufacturing, electric vehicle production, and battery manufacturing. China is not just transitioning to clean energy, it is positioning itself to be the OPEC of the clean energy era. Russia is the biggest loser on the new map. Russia's entire geopolitical power rests on its ability to sell oil and gas to Europe. As Europe accelerates its transition away from Russian energy, a process dramatically accelerated by the Ukraine war, Russia loses its primary lever of influence. Russia has no significant position in renewable energy, no critical mineral advantage, and no technology sector capable of competing in the new energy economy. The Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, are in a fascinating position. They have the capital, the sovereign wealth funds, and the political will to invest massively in the energy transition. Saudi Arabia's NEOM project, the UAE's Masdar Clean Energy Initiative, and Qatar's hydrogen export ambitions are all attempts to buy a seat at the new energy table before the oil revenues disappear. Whether they succeed will be one of the defining geopolitical stories of the next 20 years. And then there are the hidden winners, the countries that most people have never considered, the countries sitting on top of the critical minerals, the renewable energy potential, and the geographic advantages that will make them extraordinarily powerful in the new energy world. I promised you at the beginning of this video that I would name one of them. I will. In Warning 4. Warning 4, the hidden winner. Nobody is talking about, and what it means for the next 100 years. This is the warning that changes everything, because the first 3 warnings were about problems, about decline, about vulnerability, about the chaos of transition. Warning 4 is about opportunity. Specifically, it is about the single most important geopolitical shift that the energy transition is creating, and the country that is best positioned to benefit from it. But first, let me give you the framework. Throughout history, the countries that controlled the world's most critical energy resource became the world's most powerful nations. Britain controlled coal in the 19th century and built the largest empire in human history. The United States controlled oil technology and production in the 20th century and became the world's undisputed superpower. The question for the 21st century is simple. Who controls the new energy? And the answer is not who you think. Most analysts point to China, and China is certainly a dominant player. But China has a critical vulnerability. It is a massive energy consumer. China needs to power 1.4 billion people and the world's largest manufacturing economy. China's critical mineral dominance is real, but China consumes most of what it produces. The real winner of the new energy era will be a country that has 3 things simultaneously. First, massive, largely untapped reserves of critical minerals. Second, enormous renewable energy generation potential, sun, wind, or both. Third, political stability and Western alignment, meaning it can actually sell to the markets that matter. There is one country that checks all 3 boxes more completely than any other nation on Earth: Chile. Chile sits on top of the world's largest known lithium reserves, approximately 37% of all identified global lithium deposits. Lithium is the single most critical mineral for the battery revolution. Every electric vehicle, every grid-scale storage system, every portable electronic device runs on lithium. Chile also has the Atacama Desert, the driest place on Earth and one of the highest solar irradiance zones on the planet. The potential for solar energy generation in northern Chile is almost incomprehensible in scale. Chile has a stable democratic government, a strong rule of law by Latin American standards, and deep trade relationships with both the United States and Europe. And Chile has something else. Something that most people overlook entirely. Chile has green hydrogen potential that may be unmatched anywhere on Earth. Green hydrogen, hydrogen produced using renewable electricity to split water molecules, is widely considered the most promising solution for decarbonizing heavy industry, long-distance shipping, and aviation. These are the sectors that batteries simply cannot power efficiently. The combination of Chile's solar resources, its water access from the Andes, and its existing port infrastructure makes it one of the only countries on Earth that could produce green hydrogen at a cost competitive with fossil fuels within the next decade. Chile is not the only hidden winner. Australia, with its vast lithium and rare earth deposits and enormous renewable potential, is another. Morocco, with its phosphate reserves and Atlantic wind resources, is positioning itself as Europe's clean energy supplier. Namibia, with some of the world's richest uranium and rare earth deposits, is beginning to attract serious investment attention. But Chile is the clearest example of a country that most Western investors and policymakers are dramatically underestimating. The Saudi Arabia of the new energy era may not speak Arabic, it may speak Spanish. The verdict: 3 scenarios for the global energy future. We have covered 4 warnings. Now let us talk about what comes next. The global energy transition is not a question of if, it is a question of how fast and how chaotic. Here are the 3 scenarios that energy analysts, geopolitical strategists, and financial institutions are modelling right now. Scenario 1. The smooth transition. Renewable energy deployment accelerates faster than expected. Battery storage costs collapse. Grid modernization happens at scale. Critical mineral supply chains diversify away from Chinese dominance. The transition happens over 20 to 30 years with manageable disruption. Winners: United States, Chile, Australia, Morocco. Losers: Russia, Venezuela, Nigeria, Iran. Scenario 2. The chaotic transition. The transition accelerates in some sectors, but stalls in others. Energy prices become extremely volatile. Oil spikes in the late 2000s as underinvestment creates supply gaps, then crashes in the 2000s and 30s as demand collapses. Geopolitical conflicts over critical minerals intensify. Several petrostates face economic collapse and political instability. The world gets through the transition, but it is painful, expensive, and destabilizing. Scenario 3. The delayed transition. Political resistance, technological setbacks, and geopolitical conflicts slow the transition dramatically. Fossil fuels remain dominant through 2040. Climate consequences accelerate. The window for an orderly transition closes. The eventual shift, when it comes, is forced, rapid, and catastrophic for unprepared economies. Most serious analysts believe Scenario 2 is the most likely outcome, which means the next 20 years will be defined by energy volatility, and the winners will be the countries, companies, and individuals who understood the transition early enough to position themselves correctly. Robert in Texas may lose his job at the refinery, but his children, if they understand what is happening, have the opportunity to build something extraordinary in the new energy world. The question is whether they are paying attention. Are you? Drop your answer in the comments. Which scenario do you think is most likely? 1, 2, or 3? And if you want to understand how the energy transition connects to the collapse of the dollar system, the rise of China, and the future of American power, watch the next video. The link is on your screen right now. This has been Financial History by Nelson. See you in the next one.